Sacred blood. Attis's blood made flowers grow, similar to Jesus's redeeming blood. Phrygian priests. Attis's priests castrated themselves, paralleling Jesus's comments on eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven. The priests of Attis, the Phrygian god of vegetation, were known as the Galli, singular. Gallus, eunuch priests of the great mother goddess Cybele, who ritually castrated themselves in emulation of Attis's self-mutilation in the myth. Adopting women's clothing and serving in elaborate, ecstatic rites symbolizing death and rebirth, a practice that became prominent in the Roman Empire despite social controversy. Key characteristics of the Galli, eunuchs. A core aspect of their priesthood was self-castration during initiation, mirroring Attis's mythical self-mutilation under a pine tree. Cross-dressing, they wore women's clothing and jewelry, challenging Roman gender norms and occupying an ambiguous gender space. Ecstatic rituals. Their worship involved frenzied music, dancing, and sometimes orgiastic elements, reflecting the wild nature of Cybele. Role in the cult. They served Cybele and Attis, with the highest-ranking priest sometimes called Attis. Symbolism. Their practices symbolized the death and rebirth of vegetation, linking to Attis's myth of castration and resurrection. Origin and spread. Phrygian roots. The cult originated in Phrygia and was later adopted by the Greeks and Romans. Roman adoption. Cybele and Attis arrived in Rome around 205 BCE, becoming a state cult, though the Galli remained somewhat marginalized outsiders. Evolution. In later Roman periods, some priest colleges included Roman citizens who were not castrated, showing an adaptation of the cult. Key differences and scholarly view. Nature of death and resurrection. Attis's story involves self-mutilation and mystical preservation rebirth for his cult, whereas Jesus's is about vicarious atonement and a verifiable, bodily resurrection. Salvation. Attis wasn't a universal savior, Jesus was. Evidence. Claims of direct borrowing are largely dismissed by scholars, who see these as parallelomania, finding patterns where none exist or overstating minor coincidences. Timeline. Many of the specific parallels appear in later periods or reinterpretations, long after Christianity began. In essence, while both figures come from ancient mythologies and have surface-level similarities, deeper analysis reveals significant differences in their roles, narratives, and theological meanings, with most scholars refuting the idea that Jesus's story was copied from Attis. While some popular theories suggest Jesus's story borrowed from the mystery cult of Attis, modern scholarship largely dismisses these claims, noting Attis's myth, self-castration, ambiguous resurrection, focus on rebirth not salvation, differ significantly from Jesus's crucifixion, atonement, and bodily resurrection, with claims of parallels often based on exaggerated similarities or later interpretations. In Phrygian mythology, the god Attis was miraculously born of the virgin goddess Nana, who conceived him by placing a ripe almond or pomegranate in her bosom, leading to a miraculous birth around the winter solstice, a story often compared to Jesus' birth due to similar themes of virgin birth and divine sonship, though scholarly views on the extent of influence vary. Attis, a vegetation god, symbolized seasonal death and rebirth, central to Cybele's cult, with rituals including his self-castration, death, and joyful resurrection. The myth of Attis' birth. Origin of Nana, the Great Mother. The origin of December 25th, the Roman Sol Invictus. Persian Mithra, Greek Apollo and Dionysus, Egyptian Horus and Osiris, and Phrygian Attis, often as part of myths about winter solstice rebirth, though scholarly debate exists on historical accuracy versus later syncretism for some claims. Gods associated with December 25th. Sol Invictus. The Roman Emperor Aurelian established December 25th as the official birthday for this major Roman sun god in 274 CE, linking it to the winter solstice. Summary of origins. The association of these deities with December 25th primarily stems from the winter solstice. Ancient cultures often celebrated the rebirth of the sun as days began to lengthen after the solstice. Modern comparative mythologists frequently group these figures together under this solar theme, even when their original mythologies do not support a December 25th birthday. The winter solstice is the shortest day and longest night of the year, happening around December 21st in the northern hemisphere, when Earth's pole tilts furthest from the sun, marking the start of astronomical winter and the turning point where daylight hours begin to lengthen again, celebrated globally with festivals symbolizing rebirth and light. What it is: an astronomical event when one of Earth's poles is at its maximum tilt away from the sun. Saturnalia, the Roman precursor. Saturnalia was a week-long Roman festival honoring Saturn, the god of agriculture, held from December 17 to 23. It was a time of joyous chaos and social upheaval characterized by role reversals, social norms were suspended, masters served meals to their enslaved workers, and a mock king, the lord of misrule, was elected to preside over festivities. Feasting and revelry, business, schools, and courts closed for public banquets, gambling, and merrymaking. Gift-giving, people exchanged small tokens such as wax candles to signify light and terracotta figurines. Decorations, homes were decorated with wreaths and greenery like holly. The transition to Christmas. By the 4th century, Christian leaders began to formally celebrate the birth of Jesus on December 25. Historical evidence suggests several reasons for this choice. Competing with pagan festivals. Early church officials likely chose the date to co-opt and Christianize popular midwinter celebrations like Saturnalia and the Dies Natalis Solis Invicti on December 25. Theological symbolism. Christians often described Jesus as the light of the world, making the winter solstice a natural metaphor for his birth. Calendar calculations. Some scholars believe the date was calculated as exactly 9 months after March 25, the traditional date of Jesus' conception. Therefore, while the religious meaning of Christmas shifted toward the Nativity, many secular traditions such as feasting, gift-giving, and decorating with greenery directly descend from the ancient Roman Saturnalia and Northern European Yule festivities. Claims that Jesus Christ is merely a pagan rendition of figures like Attis and Horus are considered historically inaccurate by academic scholars, with alleged parallels being largely superficial, exaggerated, or based on sources that post-date Christianity. Horus claims that the Egyptian god Horus was born of a virgin on December 25, had 12 disciples, performed miracles, or was crucified and resurrected have no basis in ancient Egyptian texts. The Horus myth, which varied over time, describes him as the son of Isis and Osiris, conceived after Isis used magic to temporarily revive her murdered husband. His story primarily concerns avenging his father and his conflict with the god Set, not a narrative of salvation or a single resurrection event similar to Jesus's and as previously mentioned. Attis was a Phrygian vegetation god and consort of the goddess Cybele. Myths state he castrated himself under a pine tree and bled to death, with violets growing from his blood. The festival of Attis did include a day of blood and a day of joy celebrating his rebirth in spring, symbolizing the agricultural cycle, but accounts of him being born of a virgin or crucified are generally from sources written centuries after Christianity emerged, and may have been influenced by Christian narratives, not the other way around. The comparison of Attis, Horus, and Jesus highlights debates about religious origins, with some arguing Jesus' story mirrors older pagan myths. Horus, Attis, Mithras featuring virgin births, divine parentage, crucifixion, and resurrection. While most academics dismiss these claims as exaggerated or fabricated, noting Jesus was a historical figure with unique narratives rooted in Judaism, and ancient sources don't support many specific parallels. These comparisons often stem from fringe theories but lack robust historical evidence, though acknowledging general mythic themes and ancient savior figures is common. The life of Jesus as described in the Gospels is rooted in a specific historical context and fulfills Jewish prophecies, distinct from the thematic elements of pagan mythology. The Talmud's view of Jesus. Rejection of messiahship. Jewish tradition holds that Jesus did not fulfill the criteria for the Jewish Messiah. The negative view of Jesus in the Talmud is rooted in the specific context of Jewish-Christian polemic and the rejection of his claims to be the Messiah and Son of God, not because of a perceived pagan origin. Blasphemy and idolatry. According to the Talmud, Jesus was considered a false teacher who attempted to convince Jews he was the Messiah and the Son of God, which was viewed as blasphemous. Legal execution. One Talmudic account relates the trial and execution of Jesus as a sorcerer who enticed other Jews to apostasy, maintaining he was rightfully executed as per Jewish law at the time. The issue for the Talmud was theological and related to the identity and actions of Jesus within a Jewish framework, not an argument about whether his story was a recycled pagan myth.